Hi, my name's Todd. Welcome back to the Laundry List. We are super, super excited. We have a very dear friend and confidant, fellow traveler, and brother on today, and we're super pumped. And this was like a last minute call in, and I couldn't be more excited. Blake's going to read the laundry list and the promises real quick, which are important because I think we got to understand that the laundry list is the job we had as kids and also the job we carry as adults into our relationships. The promises is what happens when we drop that job and just become our true selves and who we really are. Blake, take it away.
All right. So 1, we became isolated and afraid of people and authority figures. 2, we became approval seekers and lost our identity in the process. 3, we are frightened by angry people and any personal criticism. 4, we either became alcoholics, marry them or both, or find another compulsive personality such as a workaholic to fulfill our sick abandonment needs. 5, we live life from the viewpoint of victims and are attracted by that weakness in our love and friendship relationships. 6, we have an overdeveloped sense of responsibility and it is easier for us to be concerned with others rather than ourselves. This enables us not to look too closely at our own faults, etc. 7, we get guilt feelings when we stand up for ourselves instead of giving in to others. 8, we became addicted to excitement. 9, we confuse love and pity and tend to love people we can pity and rescue. 10, we have stuffed our feelings from our traumatic childhoods and have lost the ability to feel or express our feelings because it hurts so much. Denial. 11, we judge ourselves harshly and have a very low sense of self-esteem. 12, we are dependent personalities who are terrified of abandonment and will do anything to hold on to a relationship in order not to experience painful abandonment feelings, which we receive from living with sick people who were never there emotionally for us. 13, alcoholism is a family disease, and we became para-alcoholic and took on that characteristics of that disease, even though we did not pick up the drink. 14, para-alcoholics are reactors rather than actors.
Boom.
So as Todd said, that's what we had. That's the job we had. That's our former employer. And then this is what we get when we get to be our true authentic selves. 1, we will discover our real identities by loving and accepting ourselves. 2, our self-esteem will increase as we give ourselves approval on a daily basis. 3, fear of authority figures and the need to people please will leave us. 4, our ability to share intimacy will grow inside us. 5, as we face our abandonment issues, we will be attracted by strengths and become more tolerant of weaknesses. 6, we will enjoy feeling stable, peaceful, and financially secure. 7, we will learn how to play and have fun in our lives. 8, we will choose to love people who can love and be responsible for themselves. 9, healthy boundaries and limits will become easier for us to set. 10, fears of failure and success will leave us as we intuitively make healthier choices. 11, with help from our ACA support group, we will slowly release our dysfunctional behaviors. 12, gradually with our higher powers' help, we will learn to expect the best and get it.
Thank you, Blake. That was awesome. Shay, I actually wanted to ask you something. Do you know any women that want to come on the podcast? Because I had a few people today call me that are avid listeners, and they're like, we love your guest. We love the podcast. But, dude, you got to get some females on there. So,
Off the top of my head,
okay.
no.
But let's put our heads together over this next week.
We got one for the 15th.
Okay.
Super secret, top secret guests coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think I should reach out to my ex-wife and see if she wants to come on?
No, not a good idea.
Oh,
not
darn.
a good idea. But
what you said.
my ex-wife would come on, actually. And
yeah,
she's working on something right now that I think she would like to come on. And
should we get Julie on?
Share. Yeah, she's been on twice. Yeah, but she would come back on.
Right. What about any of your ex-girlfriends? Should we go through? We could go through our ex-girlfriends.
I don't know
list.
where they are.
Yeah, that's good. It's probably a good idea. But anyways, welcome James to the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast. You're,
Thanks for having me on.
You're part of the triad here. And what's the name of our group text? We got the guys, or what's it called?
What is that? What is that called?
Shabu? I don't know.
Schmabo.
Schmabo. What does Schmabo stand for?
From Cabo.
Yeah,
Schmabo. Okay. Yeah. We went to Cabo. I was mourning big time from Gray, and Blake just got the news that his marriage was over. And then we take off to Cabo. The trip was planned for a while, but it was like an amazing trip.
It was unbelievable.
Like literally the next day after it happened.
Literally 24 hours, I'm sitting on a plane with Todd and
it probably felt surreal.
It was
right?
surreal.
Like you weren't even in your
you're
body.
talking about, just making me laugh so hard I was crying, but I was crying anyways. So it's like I couldn't. There were moments of tears of laughter.
But if you would have been in Phoenix,
oh God,
in your room,
terrible.
Yeah, and it's like now looking back on it, it's like the universe doing for me what I couldn't do for myself at the time. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, we're gonna drop this bomb on you one day before you're supposed to go to Cabo, and everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, that's a good saying, and we can get through anything.
Oh, absolutely.
No matter what happens, we can get through it. And still be in gratitude, love, acceptance, and joy. There's still joy no matter what happens in life. Sure. James, we don't want to hog, the microphone, but
I was about to say pain is the best teacher. Mm-hmm. You got to go through it.
Yeah, pain is. And a lot of people don't want to feel pain, including myself. So we have all these cool little loopholes and toys that we have to not feel pain, such as drugs, alcohol, addictive,
Izzy.
What is it?
Izzy.
Bang?
Izzy.
Who's Izzy?
Doesn't matter.
Oh.
Inside joke. It's going. It just, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. we have these things that we use to not feel pain. But I think once we come in to do the work and we realize that feeling the pain, feeling the emotions, feeling those feelings of the laundry list, the abandonment, feeling that feeling of never really being loved and feeling okay with yourself. And, by doing that, it's like we actually get through it and get to know ourselves a little better and appreciate the pain and suffering that we go through in life.
Absolutely.
And so why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because, I know your story. I know your childhood and, between your mom and your dad, there was a lot of emotion there, a lot of caretaking, a lot of like having to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. Always being worried about how are they going to be okay.
Right.
So you became the caretaker. You became that was your role model and making sure they're okay, which
performing for love.
It's one of the laundry list traits is that we're much concerned with those that we love rather than ourselves. And you had to do that at a very, very young age. So why don't you just expand on that and talk a little bit about what that looked like?
Absolutely. My parents divorced when I was 6 months old, and there's been so much that's happened since since then. But my father was an alcoholic. My mother was an addict, and she met my stepfather in treatment in Tucson. And 6 months later, they were married. And I'm actually named after my stepfather. My mom didn't allow my father to actually see me born. So, there's a lot of all that stuff I found out, after, around when I got out of the Marines when I was 23, 24. And, it was a rough thing to, hear. And I don't know how the family managed to keep that information from me, but they did. And so, there was a lot of, it's interesting. Like my mom and my dad had joint custody of my sister and I. We spent every other weekend, at my mom's house in Glendale and my father's house in Scottsdale. And it seemed, every time I would go over there, it was, I only knew my dad to get off work, pick me up. He'd play Picture Me Rollin' and Temptations by Tupac. Those were like the first two songs he would play when he'd pick me up. He'd drive me, back over on his side of town, and we go right to Bell and right off Bell and Tatum. It was called Copper Sports Grill. It's named something else now, but I knew everybody in that bar because I had been going there since I was.
How old are you now at this point?
I was about 6 years old.
Okay.
And so
you're going.
Mine was Armadillo Grill, which is they've ripped down, thank God. But
I used to go there. So you were at this bar at 6 years old. Your dad took you in there, and what did he do? Just like he didn't gave a Game Boy and say, stay busy, son.
No, like I don't think I ever had a Game Boy. But he taught me pool. I knew every single one of his friends, and I would just sit there on the bar stool with them and essentially watch him drink and.
Did you notice the behavior changing at that age? Could you tell?
I think, I think so. Yeah, definitely. But it was always just there for, 3 to 4 hours. And then, that continued until I was about 13 years old. And there were times where, I would have to like drive him home. Yeah, 'cause he lived in Santerre Apartments, which is, right off Bell. And
you weren't driving at 6 though. How old were you when you were driving him home?
Like 12, 13.
Okay. So clearly not legal, didn't have a license.
Definitely not.
And you were driving him home because that was the only choice you had.
And the only choice I had, and he would always make me stop by, the Circle K to pick him up, a pint and, a fifth. And that was a constant thing, And so, we would go back and, he would watch TV and, when I got older, I wouldn't go as much,
Can you remember 6, 7, 8 years old being in that bar, him coming just home drunk? Could you remember the feelings you had of worry, terror, anxiety, abandonment? Like, could you actually try to visualize those feelings and feel those feelings? Because I know at 6 years old, it's hard for me to remember what I was feeling at certain experiences.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing that I felt was, it's interesting because I spent a lot of time around my father, and he was a man that could never like really dig deep emotionally. Right. And he could really never expand on topics in conversation, especially as I got older. And when I was young, it was like, it was kind of the same, thing, very, very surface level. And so I would always try to manufacture ways to make things interesting, have interesting experiences with my dad. Right.
So you were trying to come up with like topics of conversation, things to do.
Yeah. Engagement, experiences, and it's like, he would take me to the batting cage, but like, he wouldn't like watch me perform. Like, he wouldn't watch me hit balls, so it was always like, I don't give a shit about the batting cage. Like, I just want you like to like pay attention to me. You know what I mean? And so, and I think that's where like in my adult life now, I find myself trying to perform for love. Right.
So you saw back then the abandonment was getting rooted and you didn't feel loved. You didn't feel important. You didn't feel validated. You didn't feel like your dad approved and thought the world of you, like every little boy wants. Right.
Right.
And it's like, holy fuck.
It's one of the most important things is having the approval
to feel
of your
safe.
father, right?
And your dad's like, you're his shining light,
right.
And so you jumped into that laundry list that we read and you became the caretaker and you became performing for love and you became the people pleaser and all those things.
Right.
So you would get a little bit of attention.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things too is I would sacrifice anything, including myself, identity, plans, commitments to make you think more of me. Right. And to love me. So I was willing to do really anything, to feel that acceptance, and especially, it's really in any relationship now, today. So, my mom was, and she did the best and my dad did the best he could with the tools that he had. Right. And so did my mom.
I think we're all doing the best we can.
Yeah, we all doing the best we can. And
it's like I'm 56 and I know maybe 5% of what I think I should know,
Yeah, no, absolutely. My mom was really big codependent, and
drug addict.
Right. And
good combo there.
Yeah, no, it's a solid one, good recipe.
So you were, again, not that important because if she was a codependent, her relationship was her focus and probably her drug habit was her focus. And then you were there and she had to take care of you. She had to make sure you were, fed and clothed and
right. And, I think my relationship with my mom was, we were close for a really long time. And it kind of started to fade. And I'll give you a story. So, and I won't mention like certain names, but I moved my mom out to Tennessee probably 6 years ago. And
when you say you were really close, do you mean as a child or as an adult?
As a child.
Okay. So when you were really young.
Right. And I moved her out to Tennessee. She wanted to be out there and be with a certain someone. And when I drove her out there, like she had no place planned to stay. And I was discovering this as I was driving. It's like, you don't ask your mom, like, hey, where are you staying? Where are you going to work? Like, she's an adult. She's supposed to know these things herself, right?
You're the parent in the relationship.
Exactly. Now. And so, I find this out probably,
Oklahoma.
Exactly. A day before we get there, and so, so essentially, long story short, I end up dropping her off at a Motel 6 in Antioch, Tennessee.
Lovely place. I can imagine it in my head.
And I'm trying to find, like, on the go, a storage unit to put all of her stuff in, because we're in a U-Haul and we're towing her car. And so, like, she's big plant lady, right? She loved plants. I've got 15 plants in my house.
That's where you get it from.
Exactly. And so she kept her plants in her car, and I'm like, okay, like, this is I guess this is it, and just like the thought of, like, leaving your mom at a Motel 6 in Antioch, Tennessee, with some really questionable characters staying there. I remember calling our friend Jeff and getting to the airport and just, like, bawling my eyes out, like, Jeff, like, I literally just left my mother, like, and I had, to catch the plane. It was just such a traumatic, and I was 24 years old. And so
probably really worried about her.
Yeah, really worried about her. And so, we didn't end up talking, for a while. And, she ended up, due to
you, right? Because you were angry with her, right?
Yeah. Angry, resentful.
Yep.
I was super hurt, and, when you have, I think your parent do that, there's kind of a disregard for your relationship, I can never imagine doing that to my child. You know what I mean? Like, ultimately making me responsible for the trajectory of, like your life, or, like, your life situation, you know what I mean? Cause I trusted her to have a plan and all of that, and she didn't. And so, there again, just like, as a kid, I was abandoned again. I felt this, like, immense feeling of abandonment. And it was, it was tough. It was tough. And so that's more so, like, into my adult life. But, as a child, my mom and I, we were pretty close, but she didn't have a lot of, like, discretion in topics that she would talk to me about. She would talk to me about, relationships with other men, that she would have.
Talked about her stuff.
Yeah, her stuff, her adult stuff as I was a kid. And it almost seems as if she was asking for, validation. And as a kid, like, you don't have that type of compute power, you know what I mean? Like, you're not an adult, you know what I mean? So as a kid, I'm like, of course, I'm just going to validate my mom, tell her that it's okay.
She's great. I love you.
Yeah, exactly.
You're beautiful, whatever the validation looks like. Yeah.
Yeah. So
again, a lot of pressure on a kid, and way beyond the pay grade of what a kid should be dealing with. Right. I mean, a kid should be playing and experiencing things for the first time. So it's you got to grow up quickly in that role.
Yeah, you do. And you don't have the opportunity to be a kid, and I'm getting, I'm 33. So I'm getting to the point where, I'm, like, starting to become more comfortable in having a relationship, with a woman. And there's all of these things I'm, like, discovering about myself, that, like, I went from 23 getting out of the Marines, and all I really wanted to do was just not become my father, not become my mother, So again,
did you become your father and mother?
I did for, from 2012 to 2016, I got addicted to drugs, and I was in I isolated myself for 4 years, and I didn't really know I was doing it. And it's exactly what my dad did. He just came home, drank, watched TV, and I was working hard during that time. I thought I was doing really, really good, and but that was, I think, more of kind of like a mechanism to make myself feel safe. Like success was gonna, like, really help me get to that stage. where I did feel secure. And, and so again, like I didn't really give myself permission to like really have fun. Like I wasn't having a lot of fun, and, just the experience with the military and, there was PTSD.
Do you remember when you were enlisting? I think you told me the story. What was going through your mind and what were the emotions you felt when you're like, I want to join the Marines?
I've always wanted to serve my country. I mean, when I saw the towers go down, I was in 6th grade. I felt like an immense feeling to like make it right. And so, it always stuck with me. Always watched like the History Channel and, documentaries, war documentaries, stuff about like the SEALs training and, things like that, that just kind of like as a boy, like really kind of revved you up and it excited you. And so
Blood Class 234.
Exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
And you were under 18, right? When you enlisted?
I was 18. I signed before I told my parents, and I just came home and said, hey, I joined the Marines. I leave in August 2009. Stepped on the yellow footprints August 24th, 2009. And so, that was my summer senior year. So May, June, July, August. Yeah. So I spent 3 months in Prescott where I grew up a majority of my life. And then I left to MCRD San Diego. So, yeah. But the feeling was, I've always been a patriot. I love America and, what we do and what we stand for. And,
so that helps create your identity and helps create some sense of pride and feeling good about yourself. I know you're saying you feel good about your country and you're a patriot, but also that I think mirrors sort of how you feel about yourself because you're doing something esteemable and something that you're proud of. Yeah,
definitely.
What were some of the takeaways of the military? Obviously, there's just, I'm sure you saw a lot of crazy stuff and felt a lot of feelings there. But what were some of like your takeaways of the good part of the Marines, getting deployed and also coming back,
Right.
What were some of like the real moments you're like, God, that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the infantry. I trained as an 0341 and then I was in a weapons platoon. So I was an 0341, a mortarman, and then I deployed as a machine gunner on my second deployment. And it was the best job I ever had. I mean, when you go over there in that type of capacity, like in a combat deployment, you had trained so much for it that it's kind of just second nature. It's just like another day. But really the only thing that you care about when you're there is, the guy to your left and right, because that's really all that matters. So
you get that sense of unity and bonding
as a tribe and
family, a tribe.
Right.
Which I think we're all born to be part of.
No, totally. And, it's a really neat, there's nothing else like it in the world. The bond that you form and you share, the experiences that you have, the blood, sweat and tears, the shitty food that you make yourself and that you talk shit about, like lemon poppy seed pound cakes and the MREs. Like you pray to God that you get the chicken pesto because they always have, lemon poppy seed pound cakes. And, eating the same thing for 3 months, you know what I mean? Those are the things that you remember. And, it's not so much really like the job and what you do. It's the experiences you share with others. And, you take that into your civilian life and it really makes you feel grateful for all the things that we have, So yeah, man, I mean, there's still.
So when you came back, did you miss that camaraderie, the unity, the love, the fellowship?
Yeah.
The looking out for the guy on your left and right? Mm-hmm. Like, did you miss some of that when you came back?
Absolutely. I mean, I spent basically from the time I got back from Afghanistan, it was about 6 weeks and I was back home in Prescott, like in my room that I grew up in high school, so it was kind of it was a culture shock. And I had no idea what I was going to do. I spent
And you're 23?
Yeah, 23.
Did you feel like you were depressed and sad and isolating, or?
I was sad. I wasn't depressed, but I was really scared. Cause the world was completely different when I came back, because you change, and so you don't look at things, differently. You're kind of resentful against, what in my mind, and I think any military member's mind of, people other than you, which is a civilian, because you have this unique experience in yourself that you don't necessarily want to talk about, because if I do talk to you about it, there's no reference point. You've never been through it.
Right. So
inherently you already feel isolated.
You're talking a different language to somebody.
You already feel isolated.
What's the point?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I think that's what really contributes to my isolation and then drug addiction and alcoholism is that, I didn't want to go out to places like, I was hyper vigilant. I was paranoid. All of those things that, contributed to the isolation was that, but also, when I drank and when I did drugs, it was always this feeling of shame, and I didn't want to let anybody, see that.
Blake, what do you want to ask or add about? Because I just find it so interesting and admirable about people that go in the military and get deployed and, risk their life for something they believe in and have that experience and then come back and really struggle, and it just, my heart goes out to those folks.
And I think when vets get out, it's super critical for them to find their tribe. And for me, I didn't find that till 2016, until I walked in your house. Seriously.
Yeah.
And I remember that day, that was a Wednesday. And, it was, we all talk about it as a spiritual experience, and that definitely was, because I had never felt, love and acceptance from a group of men since I went in the military, and that was Alcoholics Anonymous. You guys like literally loved me back to life. And that's when I found my tribe again, right? I could actually be a part of something. I could be a part of a group of like-minded men, that all shared the same hardship and difficulty and, ism, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And in a place where you could go and where you could talk about it.
You could be vulnerable.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And not have to look good or people please or.
Yeah. Cause my life before the program was really just me and my own thoughts alone, and so terrified to share those thoughts with anybody else. So now I'm opened up to this like group of men that, not only share their experience, but they're wanting you to share yours, and it's a great thing. And so, yeah, just, going through the sets and reps and, those things. And being another really big thing is being pushed to do new things, just because, you feel this way that doesn't mean that it's actually fact. Feelings are facts. And having people like tell you the actual truth, even though sometimes it, is going to hurt. Right. Mm-hmm. People being really honest with you, Blake and I share the same, sponsor, and, he's always honest, and it's like,
he can't help himself.
He can't help himself. But I mean, like how much we've grown, man, like, since,
yeah, I mean, there was a period of time in my life where I couldn't I had to have someone tell me, okay, Blake, now get up. You're going to get dressed. You're going to shower. You're going to brush your teeth, and we're going to leave in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when you get in the car, I'm going to tell you the next thing you're going to do.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like all of your thinking, all of your actions got you to a place in your life. And it didn't really get you anywhere. Like one of the things I share in meetings all the time is like, I was trying so hard to design a life that I thought that I wanted. And now I have a life that I couldn't have designed myself, know, and that's just came from surrender. And that came from, literally having somebody tell you like what to do, and there's a certain period in recovery that, especially early on that, you just download all of your shit all the time. And it gets to a point where like, he would always say, just, listen, just shut the fuck up. Okay. Like, this is what I want you to do. I want you to call the next person that you call, just go for as long as you can and not talk about yourself.
Right.
And if they ask you a question,
I have in my calendar, make it about them, not me.
Right.
Every day for the last, 5 years, every day it's in there just to remind myself, let's talk about other people. Let's ask them how they're doing. What's their day look like? We can get to my sulking child in a minute here, but let's focus on you and see how you're doing, and try to be somewhat of a loving, a balanced adult here.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's the big part of the equation, that I've learned in recovery is just subtracting yourself as much as you can, and if you can do that, you forget about, your problems.
Yeah.
You're able
but
to.
I also think there's a balance in that, because we can't get lost on who we are. We have to ask for what we want. We have to, get what we need, and we just can't forget about this is our life, and we're going to do what we want to do and get what we want to get. But it takes action.
Right.
And by making it all about someone else, even though that's a selfless act and gets us out of ourself, which might help emotionally for us, it also is a bit of a, ignorance towards ourself and self-love.
And it can feed the people pleasing in us.
No question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a balance, and you got to look at it holistically. But the narrative is, look, I care about other people. I care about myself. Love, love, love is the answer, right? I love you guys. I love myself, and I'm going to be nice to you and myself, however that looks.
Yeah. But I'm not going to sacrifice myself.
I had relationships, and still have some, where they talk about themselves 24/7, and it's like,
I think we both do.
It's like after a while, you're just like, wow,
Right.
You didn't once ask me how I'm doing, how my son's doing, how, my wife's doing, how my parents are doing, or whatever, my dogs. And it's like, okay, and I'm just there as like a,
sounding board.
Yeah, like just a warm body for them just to vent and to talk.
But isn't it great when you have like friends that reciprocate that? Like when you're saying that list, how's your son, how's your dogs, how's your dad, and how's your wife? Like I know how those people are doing.
Yeah.
And I know how you are doing, and I know how James is doing. And it's like, that's that when it talks about the intimacy will grow inside us. I think that's the thing, like that's the stuff that really matters.
Well, and being able to stand up and say, hold on, I've been where you are. I know what you're feeling. I'm with you. We're only a mirror for each other.
Yeah, for sure.
So let me tell you my experience.
Yeah.
And then you can go in and tell them, I was in a place when I had a health anxiety in 2010, 11. All I could talk about was my health anxiety. Everybody, I would just call people and just talk about this health anxiety. And like, I knew people would call, they would answer. They'd be like, "Hey, Todd, what's up?" And I would just go into it.
How you feeling?
Just nonstop, Well, the doctor said this, and I got an appointment. I got an MRI, and it was a loop. It was a complete obsession.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we know people that are like that right now.
Yeah. So have empathy, compassion, but also be honest and help them get out of it. Don't just be a sounding board and listen to them and just let them, continue to do what they're doing. Give them some tools and some help and some of your experience of how to get out of it.
Right.
Richard always talks about this phrase, and I went on a date last night, and I was talking to her, and she's like, like when your partner is really stressed, like what are some tools that you've learned through the last couple months that can help that? And it's the whole concept of, do you want solutions or do you just want comfort?
Right.
And
do you want the circumstances to change for your benefit so you get peace and comfort, or do you want to change?
Yeah. It's like,
because if you want to change, the shit might not go down like you want, and you might feel some discomfort, but you're going to grow from it and you're going to love yourself more.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it might be a little bumpy.
Exactly. No, more so just dealing with their, like, if they want to vent, like, do you want, my opinion and from my experience you want, or do you want me to just, listen, Yeah.
Cause there's a lot of times where I just want people to
listen. I mean, I do that with you sometimes now.
Yeah.
And that's great. You know, there are some times where you just got to sit there with the guy,
you
know, and just love on him and just let him do whatever the fuck he's going to do.
Sometimes James, I'm like, do you want my opinion? And he's like, absolutely not. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And it took us a while to actually get there, man.
Yeah, we did. Know? We got to figure it out.
We got to figure it out. And you have to learn that type of communication.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
but it feels good to like actually say what you mean and you know, not people please. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, tell me what you care. And really you're deep down, you're like, I don't fucking care what he has to say. You know, doesn't it feel good to like, no, I don't really want to hear what you have to say right now.
Yeah.
As opposed to the people pleasing answer, which is, yeah, tell me, I want to hear about it.
Yeah.
And you get more resentful.
You're only hurting yourself.
Right. But you get resentful at him for telling you that. And then you get resentful at yourself for not being honest.
Yeah.
So you're lying to yourself and you're lying to him.
Yeah.
I mean, people pleasing and codependency is the biggest form of manipulation and lying that's out there.
Yeah.
You know, at least people that are rageful and angry are fucking being real and getting that shit out. You know, people
they really are.
It's like you're acting like you're all this, you know, you're this incredible person by being nice and seductive and helping people, but really you're just full of shit and you're lying to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate that part of myself. It's taken. So, I mean, I'm working, you know, harder and harder on not being that, you know, that codependent and people pleasing, you know, type of person.
Where does it mostly show up? Does it show up in early dating?
Definitely.
Yeah, because that was a big one for me.
Definitely.
Lay it on thick. You know,
lay it on
thick.
And then you feel,
make sure they are hooked, fall in love, know how great you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like being like I'm definitely an anxious attachment style. So it's just like, I want to tell you everything about me.
Yeah, don't tell them that, by the way.
Too late.
You know, just so you know, I'm an anxious attachment style, and
Too late.
I'm really looking forward to our second date.
First podcast.
Hey, good.
Yeah.
But, you know, yeah, it's I'm learning and, you know, there's a lot to learn.
Can you forgive yourself for mistakes you make in your life today or mistakes you've made in the past? Are you gentle and loving towards yourself or do you beat the shit out of yourself?
I beat the shit out of myself. I'm pretty good at it.
And how do you stop that?
In silence.
How do you stop that narrative? Well, that's worse than.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely a self-talk, you know, and it's being able to, it's all these like little mechanisms that you can try. Like, one of the biggest things that's worked for me is like, and Jeff and I, like, he taught me this from Tony Robbins. He's like, listen, I just want you to try this for like a week. And as you tap your chest, say, if I'm true to myself and true to others, I will be free. Once you start,
if I'm true to myself and I'm true to others, I will be free.
It's good.
If I'm true to myself and I'm true to others, I will be free.
Yeah. And you do that enough times, you know, at the end of a week, your chest is going to be sore. You're going to feel it, you know? And so that's a part of changing your physiology. It's like, you know, oh my God, I'm going into like this shame spiral, or I'm obsessing about this like thing that does not matter, or what she said, or, you know, how she responded to a text, or, you know, oh fuck, like she hasn't like texted me back. You're like, this is like crazy shit, you know, like not normal stuff that like I obsess about. And it's always 99% is all made up. It's just a delusion, you know?
Right. Well, what I've come to realize is that the obsession or the shame attack has usually nothing to do with the thing you think it has to do with.
Yeah.
It's my body and my past trauma coming out, trying to find a way to, you know, get some attention. Like, I'm so used to shame from 0 to 10 that I've just been programmed and trained
your brain's
to figure
trained,
out where to go get shame. So guess what? I'm going to beat myself up for what I did to my kid, what I did in business, who I yelled at, who I gave the silent treatment to. And I'm just like, that narrative, that inner critic. How could I have done that? What is wrong with you? I knew it. I told you were not a good person. Told you weren't smart, you know? And then it's that narrative that you're like, hold on. It's time out. Todd, let's have a talk. So that's why I love to hear how people get out of that loop and that narrative.
Yeah. And there's like Eileen Smith has a book called Moving Beyond Trauma. There's like a bunch of exercises that you go through, you rate yourself, and you know, it's somatic therapy, and it's all about changing your physiology. and how it can help.
So what does she recommend when you start having the shame attacks and the inner critic?
The ground, I mean, the one that she's got a ton of them, but the one that I'm a fan of is, the grounding exercise where you lay flat on the floor, you put your hand on your stomach and your heart, and you breathe for as many seconds as you can count up, and then at a certain cadence, and then the same cadence all the way down. It's actually kind of hard to do.
So inhale.
Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, until you can't breathe anymore. And then you breathe down that same pace.
And then exhale.
Right. And you try to do that.
So you're just focused on your breath.
3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
Trying to interrupt the loop.
That's hard.
It's really hard.
You're just interrupting. It's a pattern interrupt,
Richard tells me to do math problems, business problems, because it's impossible to be in a shame attack and doing all these math
trying
problems.
trying to find out the depreciated cash flow of
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it's hard to hear that, because when you're in that shame attack, I'm a 6-year-old little boy, and the 6-year-old little boy is not going to know how to do some of these business calculations.
Yeah.
So I got to quickly try to figure out how to get back to the adult.
Got to get an adult time.
Yeah.
Like the one thing that continues to crop up for me in my life now, and I'll immediately go into a shame spiral, is anytime I get an email from my attorney. Like immediately, like what's
like, going to be in here?
What is going on? I feel like I'm 7 and I'm getting walked to the principal's office.
Yeah.
I'm in trouble. You're a bad boy, and it's like, got to get out of it quick. I pinch myself.
Yeah.
I literally will just pinch myself, and I'll just think
I used
about
to have the rubber bands.
The rubber band worked pretty good.
Do you remember when I had the rubber bands?
Yeah,
I had
I
the rubber
remember.
bands for a while. When Julie and I separated, and I was just like the surreal out of body experience. And I would do the rubber band, like, oh, okay, I'm in my body. I'm like feeling the pain. I could see why people become like cutters and abuse themselves. Like I heard a parable the other day. It's like, I walked in the room, my good buddy was like beating his head against the wall over and over again, just hitting his head, and he was like bleeding. I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? He goes, yeah, it hurts, but boy, it feels good when I stop. It's like, the same thing. Like, I could just torture myself, but it's more peaceful than what's going on up here.
Yeah.
Like what's going on up here is way more painful, because I'm replaying that 6-year-old getting dragged to his room because he's in trouble, and he is fucking in trouble, and he's not lovable. He's not likable. He's not validated. He's not approved.
Yeah.
And he is out there. Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about a feeling of being scared and out of control? That's that feeling. So that getting replayed as an adult, I mean, sometimes it's unbearable, So these exercises, I think, are important for our listeners to know, because like, I didn't know how to get out of any of these. That exercise you just said, I was seeing a therapist at 25, and this girl I was dating, I found out was cheating on me. And I went into that panic, that full-fledged panic. Yeah. And she told me to do that exercise, and I did it. And it like, I don't think it worked. Like I couldn't do it. Like I was just so set down the road in that panic that I tried it.
The train left the station.
And the yacht already came.
I needed to just drink and black out.
Yeah.
I mean, which is what I did that night.
Yeah. And it's so challenging to start doing it too, because you're like, this shit's not going to fucking work, man. And it kind of makes you feel silly when you first start doing it. But if you do it, just start just like once a day and see if there's, that pattern interrupt, it works. It really does work. I've been doing it for a couple weeks now, and
cool.
It's.
I'm going to try it. You'll have to text me that again, because I can't remember things, but I'm going to try that. I love Tony Robbins. I've listened to a lot of his stuff. I went to his week-long thing in LA with Barker, and boy, we just loved it.
Yeah,
just had a great time.
By the way, his wife Mel Robbins had a podcast today I listened to.
Oh, that's the one you sent me. That's his wife?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so I believe so. Hope I'm not.
You could be wrong, but it's okay.
But Maria Franco wrote a book called Platonic, and it's about romantic relationships too. But she breaks down attachment styles. The disorganized, secure, which I don't know if anybody's has belongs to a secure attachment style, but and then anxious.
That was like that's like yin and yang. It doesn't go together.
Yeah.
Secure attachment style is like being like a loving, healthy, self-esteem, suicidal person. Like it doesn't go together, you know?
And she talks about the difference between all of them and how you can have, you know, in certain points of your life, you know, have different, or have different characteristics of other attachment styles as well. And that was I listened to it like 3 times today. I'm going to
listen to it. Yeah.
It's really good.
I've been listening to a lot of Peter Crone multiple times a day, but that podcast you sent me looked very interesting. I read the description of it. Yeah. And, I love hearing about how people get out of these long-term patterns, which are they're just recreations from our emotions of childhood. Not the experiences of childhood, but the emotions we felt of childhood. It's like our subconscious and our body is telling us, okay, we got to replay those in adulthood because we're so used to them.
Right.
You know, and a lot of the fight or flight responses are great. Like, don't run in the middle of the street. Good one. Saved my life, you know? But the girl didn't call me back, and I'm literally going to drive my car 150 miles an hour because I can't take it any longer. Not good, right? So it's like we got to figure out how to communicate with our subconscious and our body and our mind to like be the adult, be the parent. Can't let that kid run the train.
Yep.
A 12-year-old shouldn't be driving his car, even though you did.
I mean, I've driven a car at 12.
Yeah. But taking your dad home drunk, like, that's,
exactly.
You know.
Exactly. Same scenario.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Both you guys.
Yeah. Prescott coming home from a golf tournament.
Wow.
I'm like, just pull over and I'll drive. Cause I'm like, it's raining.
You guys
like,
can write a book, Driving My Dad Home Drunk at 12 by James and Blake, you know, and talk about how that felt.
But at the time I thought it was completely normal.
Right.
I'm like, everyone does this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody, has to parent their parents.
That's why I love ACAs, because like those experiences, those maybe weren't traumatic for you guys, but like I have experiences when I was young that I didn't get to feel the feelings when I was that age. You know, one in particular that every time I talked about, I cried. I think I've already cried this one out, so maybe I won't cry, but I was 8 years old and my dad, I lost in a tennis tournament and my dad stopped in the middle of the road, took my tennis rackets, threw them in front of the car, like all 5 of them, and ran over them. And I am just sitting there, you know, screaming in terror and crying. And I I literally can't remember what happened. I just remember how I just felt in such a panic. So for me, it's feeling those feelings that I didn't get to feel back then, you know, because I don't know if you guys heard, but like, you better stop crying or I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I heard that a lot. Like, you better stop crying or I'm going to give you something to cry
When you
about.
said that, I just had a memory come back. And it's so weird how sometimes like memories from the past will come back. And I remember like something happened with my mom and dad and they're fighting. And I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. Like, I'm never coming back. And I remember running out the front door, hoping they would chase me, and they didn't, you know, and it's like that feeling of like,
no one loves me.
No one loves me.
No one cares about me.
No one cares.
No one wants to hold me.
Yeah. Which is, it's not true.
Well, now we know that, but when you're that young,
and I think
I think
the other, on the flip side of, you know, the negative of what attachment style you are versus not, I think it's really important. And I got asked a great question, like, what is your love language? You know, and then also asking, what do you think my love language is? And I hit it right on the head, but, for her, but I think it's also important to know like what the positive is and being able to be upfront about what you want, where Blake 3 years ago, 1, didn't know what he wanted, and 2, would definitely not ask for it.
Yeah. You know how I knew what I wanted? It's what you wanted.
Yeah. Whatever it takes for you not to be mad at me.
Whatever you want is what I want.
Whatever it takes for you not to be mad at me and keep the peace is what I want.
And approve of me and validate me and love me and hold me.
And don't yell at me.
Yeah. And definitely don't yell at me.
Definitely.
So James, what would you tell either your younger self or what would you tell a listener out there who's really struggling with the laundry list and some of that shame and inner critic? And I know you gave some tools today, but like, what would you tell them, like how to get started? You know, listen, this podcast is a good start, but how would you tell them, you know, to get started with recovery?
Good question.
That's a great question. I feel, I don't know, I guess I could share an experience. My uncle and my father were born on the same day, 10 years apart, March 28th. And I always used to go back to Jersey as a kid, and I saw how my dad acted and then how my uncle acted. My uncle lives in Jersey, and he's got a couple acres out there, nice house, has his own business, and just always seemed like a really grounded man, right? Had his own band, had his own radio station. Like I said, ran his own business. My cousin actually just graduated Rutgers with a marketing degree. And so, like, you know, he's the opposite of my dad, you know. But when I would go out there, you know, it was always me bonding more with him. And I didn't really know that he was in recovery until, you know, I got a little bit older. And I think, you know, number one is trying to find somebody that, you know, you have maybe some sort of commonality with. And that was, for me, my uncle, right? Like when I was like, man, I think I probably have a problem. Like I called him first.
With drinking and drugging?
Right.
Yeah, because you felt safe with him. And
right.
You felt like you could talk to him.
Mm-hmm. And then there was always that connection with, you know, because he knew my father really well. And I was turning into him. And so, you know, there's that, you know, whether that's a family or a friend.
Maybe a counselor or priest, somebody that you feel safe with.
Yeah. Don't do what I did and talk to, you know, psychiatrist for 6 years over the phone and not tell her that you have a drinking or drug problem. Because I did that.
Yeah. Well, you don't want her to judge you. You know? Exactly. So, I mean, I get it. You know? It's like you want her to think highly of you.
That's not important. That doesn't matter.
That's not important at all.
That's a side issue.
And so, always be honest. And, you know, there's, I think too.
There's a lot of relief with being honest.
There is.
A lot of relief. Yeah. A lot of the pet suffering and pain just goes away with being honest, I find.
Secrets keep you sick.
Yeah. And trying to find, I guess, you know, trying to find somebody that you trust and you can be honest with, you know, is really critical. Maybe starting the conversation like, listen, I need you to just listen to me. And this may take a little while, but I got to tell you something that's like been really bothering me for a long time. You know, and as soon as I finish, like I'm open to some suggestions. You know, would be one. I've told a lot of my story, and so maybe there's some answers in there. But you know, I think really seeing, I think probably where your life is at now, and being honest and just really. God, Blake, we talk about blind faith all the time, you know, and there's a fair amount of surrender that comes along with a lot of what we're talking about. You know, it's like surrender to win. That was a concept that I never got, you know, just like raise the white flag,
just get in the middle of the river,
and just having like
a lot of peace with that, a lot of peace,
having
a lot
the
of
willingness
relief
too, you know,
what you said?
A lot of like just having the willingness, you know, to do something different.
Well, we're not taught to do that. Like we're taught as kids to like, don't show your emotions, you know, put up a facade, make sure you look good, make sure they think you got it going on. And that narrative just got played in our family of origins. Like, you know, let's not be vulnerable. Let's not be open and honest. Let's look good. Let's make sure the neighbors think we're, you know, cool. It's like the opposite of sort of some of the beliefs and the messages we got.
You know, here's another one. Andrew Huberman has this exercise where he talks about journaling, and he talks about journaling for, you know, 15 minutes consistently, right? And you don't stop writing. It doesn't have to make sense, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. And you talk about a traumatic experience. You write about a traumatic experience or a set of experiences for 15 minutes straight. And you try to be as descriptive as possible.
Holy shit. That sounds terrifying.
I did that last week, and it was actually a recommendation from a girl, and it was actually really, really helpful. I wrote her about an experience in the military, and
for 15 minutes?
For 15 minutes.
How'd you feel when you were done?
Exhausted. You know, kind of like doing a 4-step, you know.
Did you read it back or no?
No.
Yeah. That's probably not even that important to
It's
read
not
it
even
back.
that important because
Right.
there's certain sections that you can't even read,
Right.
you know, because
You're so emotional.
the act of writing and like, it's not even legible. There's certain sections that weren't even legible, you know,
You were just getting it out.
getting it out.
Yeah. Another one that I would recommend to our listeners is the pillow exercise. Take a pillow and hit it on the bed as hard as you can for as long as you can and verbally get the stuff out that you're angry about. Angry about the divorce. You're angry you got fired. You're angry that your mom molested you or beat you or whatever it is. Just get it out. And it could be a lot of different things. And just beat that pillow for as long as you can.
Yeah.
Cathartic therapy. And I know when I'm done with that, it's like I literally could fall asleep.
Yeah,
But in the moment when you're doing it, oh man, is it emotional.
right.
Because I think we turn back into that kid that's in so much pain and struggling so much while we're actually beating the pillow on the bed.
Yeah.
And the one that I would leave the listeners with is listen to music as loud as you possibly can for as long as you can. And eventually it drums out the noise and you just kind of like, when I'm like going in a panic, I will get in my car, I will turn music on as loud as I can and I will just drive.
Huh. I haven't heard that one, but when I am anxious and in some discomfort, I will crank the music in the car, and it does change my frequency a little bit and change my
It like almost
attitude.
rattles your body a little bit.
I do feel better when I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
It's always meditation too.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
finding a quiet place in the morning.
my go-to.
There's a lot of
So if
good
you see
ones.
me driving around Phoenix with the music on, just give me a second.
Yeah,
I'll come back. I'll come back to planet Earth here soon. I'll come back to Earth here soon. So
Well, James, thank you very much. That was
yeah.
wonderful.
Thanks for having me.
we'll have you on. We'll have you on again.
Yeah, we'll have you on again.
We can all update each other on our dating life and
yeah, we're the accountability crew here. The accountability crew.
Yeah.
I love how we share spiritual content. I know with my drinking buddies, it was nothing like that. So I'm glad we're like trying to help each other and help us all get better and a little bit happier, a little bit more free, a little bit more helpful, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Hope I didn't share too much.
no such thing.
Yeah. See, it started already. It's time. I was wondering when I was getting the phone call tonight, did I share too much?
Too much too soon.
All right. We love you guys. Please be nice to my friend this week. We will see you next week on The Laundry List.